In today's video, I'm going to give you 4 basic brush control exercises that will transform your watercolor painting skills. What's the first skill that I like to teach beginners with watercolor painting? It's a flat wash. It's not particularly that you have to do a flat wash that often in a painting. It's that if you can do a flat wash, if you can evenly apply paint across the paper without any drying lines, then you've pretty much cracked the medium and you can take your skills forwards from there. So today I'm going to give you 3 really practical, simple exercises that you can practice to get this right. So let's start our first exercise and see what we need for success. Now, if our paper goes all bumpy, the paint's going to sit in puddles and then we're going to get drying lines. So I've taped mine down. Now, this is just a small sample piece. Ideally, for larger work, you should be working on stretched paper. I've got a free video. I'll link it in the video description if you'd like to see how to do that. I've drawn a square on my paper. Now, I've got a couple of fairly large brushes here. You don't want to try and use a small brush like this because the idea is to cover the area as quickly and smoothly and evenly as possible and leave it alone to dry flat. I've also mixed up plenty of paint. If we have to stop halfway through and mix more paint, then the first layer is going to start drying and again we'll get uneven water levels and then we'll get drying lines. The last thing I need is some paper towel or rag so that I can dab my brushes on it and remove excess paint if I need to. The paint I've mixed here is a transparent colour. This is some Daniel Smith green gold. You can do a flat wash with granulating colours like ultramarine, but it's always going to be a little bit harder because they are more textured. So what I'm going to do is pick up some paint and start at one side. I'm going to spread the colour across. See how this big brush allows me to do lots of painting without even having to dip back into the paint. I'll get a little more and I'll keep bringing this line down. Now all you have to do with a flat wash is to keep this leading edge moving. So even on a larger shape, which we'll try later, as long as you keep the edge damp, you're okay. Now see, we've got some excess water here, so I'm just going to dip and then just with the tiny point of my brush, I'll lift out. Don't press hard with your brush or you'll leave a mark. I'm absolutely not going to go back up here and fix any tiny errors or any gaps because that will be disastrous. What you don't want to do is get wet paint onto an area that's starting to dry. This is our flat wash. Now we leave it alone and next we'll try something a little bit harder. I've added a little bit of burnt sienna to my mix for no other reason than making the video a little less boring. So what I've done here is I've drawn the square again and I've actually sort of inserted on one side. I've just drawn around a cookie cutter. So now we're going to practice the same technique but going around a complicated shape. Now if I were to start in the middle here, I'd have to come around this side and round this side and try and keep both of those leading edges of paint wet, which would be very difficult. So I've got this nice start and end point here. So what I'm going to do is start one side and work my way up and round. So starting here, it's important to make sure that you can see the tip of your brush, which I can't always here on YouTube because I'm trying to keep my head out of the way of the camera, but hopefully you won't have any such problems. And we're spreading this paint across, keeping it even and dipping in when we need to, but trying again to avoid puddles. So I'm going to keep moving this across like this. I'm not at any point going to take my brush back down here. That would be pretty disastrous. Again, bringing the paint around, trying to keep the wetness levels even. You'll notice that my paper has a slight texture. You get watercolor paper that's completely smooth called hot press paper, and although it has certain uses, I wouldn't recommend it for trying to do general painting or to get a flat wash like this, because what those little bumps are doing is they're helping my paint to spread out. If you use a hot press or smooth paper, you're far more likely to get puddles, which then will dry more slowly than the surrounding areas, and then you'll get uneven water levels, and then you'll get drying lines. So as we come down to the bottom here, make sure that there's not too much liquid left on your paper, and again, we leave it alone. So let's take our practice up another level. So here I've got a shape that's in the middle and I've got to go all the way around it, and there's no easy starting and finishing place like this one here. There's actually two ways you can do this. If you've got a painting that's quite large and maybe you've got a little area you need to go all the way around it, it's not anywhere very noticeable. We could start on a little bit of clean water, sort of fade in and fade out as we came around, but honestly you never quite hide that join fully. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually come around both sides at once. It's not as hard as you would think because, as I said, all we've got to do is keep those edges damp. So what I'm not going to do is come all the way down this side and then go back to that other side because it will already be dry. So what we have to do is keep things moving. I've got too much paint here, so let's just keep spreading that round. I'm going to come across the corner here. Don't give either side more than a few seconds without moving that edge along. And I'm coming down, and it's speed over accuracy. Don't worry about any tiny errors. You'll get a much better result if you paint quickly. So again, coming down here, back to the other side. And of course, all of these samples, the smaller they are, the easier they'll be. So if you do these without issue, you could move up and try them on larger samples. And the trick to that is just use a bigger brush. As you go up your sample size, keep using a bigger brush. Now, when we come round here, we've got the same amount of water on each side. I'm going to spread this along here so we join up those sides. Again, making sure there's nothing going on in the way of puddles. And now we let it dry. We're at the halfway point in the video. Can I ask you just quickly if you could click that like button if you appreciate free content like this, leave me a comment, or best of all, free subscribe. This channel is fully CAD approved. So finally, let's look at this technique in an area where we've got a complex background and we want a flat wash to go on it. Now, we can't take that colour all over these foreground items because watercolour layers, and I've got quite a neutral muddy colour here. We don't want all these fresh colours to go on top of this. So we need to paint in between, but make it look like, you know, we just went behind in one flat wash. So first of all, I'm going to assess the areas. I've got some areas here that are small, which we can do quite easily. I've got some larger areas where we're going to need to go round shapes and some floating objects. This is probably the largest, most complicated one here. You also want to think about whether you're right or left-handed. I'm right-handed, so I don't want to do this bit down here first. I'm likely to just lean in my work. So I think what I'm going to do is start over here, and I'll start down in this corner here and come up. And then we'll need to go around that little heart, both sides at once, keeping all of these other areas wet too. You might need as well, with a larger background, to change your brush occasionally. You might need a small brush when you're painting in little areas. You might need a bigger brush when you're needing to get across larger areas quickly. Again, keeping both sides moving there as we come round. And we're working in each area. Each area is like a little island separated by these stems and things. It's just a whimsical little design I've drawn here. Now, if when starting you think, I can't get around that large complicated area, don't be afraid to add some other design elements in and just make it a little bit easier for yourself. If you enjoy simple exercises like this, you really want to get control of your paints, don't forget I have a complete beginners online watercolor course when all we do is practice simple techniques like this, going on from flat washes, moving on to things like graduated washes and faded out edges without the worry of, difficult subjects. If you're a little more advanced, I do have more advanced courses as well. I've also got some lovely single projects I call mini courses that you can purchase for a bit of a lower price and follow along with. So coming round this one here. Now, depending on how I'm feeling and if the work has time to dry, I might sometimes go in and do all the big areas first and then come back and do the smaller areas later on. But what I'm going to do this time is just work methodically around from one side to the other like this. I would like at this stage as well to say thank you to all of you who've bought channel memberships. It really is a great way to support the free videos that I do here on YouTube. I would love to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I am rich and that this is just a hobby for me, but sadly I am not. And making painting and drawing tutorials is my entire income, so it's really, really helpful to me. I don't have to rely just on very fickle YouTube advertising and my online course sales that I also have some of you supporting me here on YouTube for less than the price of a cup of coffee per month, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm coming around here, so just be careful. If it gets too wet in one place, it's likely to bleed back into that area we've already painted. So keeping that edge moving. Do you notice that I'm not taking this wet brush back into any of these damp areas? And even if I made a mistake or they dried badly, I would be likely to leave them alone and then just put a second coat on later on. It's really the easiest way to adjust, because if you take a second coat over your work, you're going to find that any drying lines and mistakes that were in the first coat of paint just even out a little bit, and it sort of can help to smooth out those underneath layers. Whereas trying to adjust it when it's like this, you know, halfway between wet and dry is always disastrous. Made a little mistake there, gone into my little heart. I can easily remove that after the paint is dry. I'll bring you back when I've finished this sample. So I'm really happy with that result. It's still drying, so there'll be a little bit of colour unevenness at the moment, but we've got pretty much a perfect flat wash. So do let me know in the comments if you're going to have a go at these simple techniques. They are deceptively simple. They take a little bit of practice. If you'd like to show me what you've done, do feel free to pop over to my Facebook group. And before you leave this video, don't forget to have a look in the video description. If I've mentioned any other videos, they'll be linked down there. There's also lots of free stuff you can grab, including free downloadable PDFs, and there's even a free course or two that you can take. If you enjoyed these techniques, I'll link to another watercolor painting video that I think is really going to help you right now.